Hello everyone, Average Joe here, and today we're going to go through some tips for training for a race. Now, in no particular order of importance, the first one is practicing your race nutrition. Now, if your race is going to involve you running for longer than an hour, it is recommended that you take gels with you. And so you're going to want to practice using those gels during your training. And this is very important because certain gels are not going to agree with your stomach, and you do not want to get to race day, take a gel whilst on your race, and then your stomach starts bubbling all over the place. So during your training, there's likely going to be a long run of some sort, so take gels on that run, take some water with you on that run, practice taking those gels and that water whilst you're running so you can find the best combination for you. My advice is to take a gel every 35 to 40 minutes. And a mini tip to add on to that is to practice running in your racing gear. Now, if you're just going to be running in a normal top that you're training in, fine. But some people like to wear something different on race day, whether that be a singlet or something similar like that. So I recommend running a couple of times in your race attire just so you know what it feels like. Now, you may have heard of carb loading, and this is essentially increasing your carbohydrate intake 3 days to a week before your race. And that is just to increase your energy stores so that you can be at peak performance on race day. And much like the first tip, you're going to want to practice doing this before your long runs during your training. So let's say you have a 20-kilometer long run that you need to do during your training. I would advise to carb load a few days before that run, just so your body can get used to what that feels like, and you can see if certain carbohydrates are working for you. You can switch them out whilst you're training. Next tip I'm a big fan of, and it's called sleep banking. I know this isn't sorting out your finance whilst you're sleeping. It is essentially the week before your race, try and get more sleep than usual every night. And the main reason for this is because on the night before your race, you're likely going to be anxious or excited or nervous, and you might not get a lot of sleep. But because you've been sleeping a lot more in that week prior, then your energy levels are still going to be okay. Next tip is extremely important, and it is strength training. It's important that we build the strength in our legs so that our legs can handle a higher capacity of load. Because during our training programs, the load is going to increase every week. And although it hasn't been proven yet, there is a hypothesis that strength training can reduce the risk of injury. So yeah, it hasn't been proven, but what harm is it doing if you just put it in your program anyway? You're only going to get stronger and have the capacity to go faster in your run. Around a month out from your race events, there will be an event guide given out by the organisers. And I recommend reading this event guide front to back to front, multiple times. There is a lot of important information in that event guide. All information like bag drop, starting times, because starting times are different depending on what time you put that you're going to finish your race in. How to get to the race itself, where you can meet your family and friends after the race. And of course, the most important is the route itself. It will show a map on that event guide, or at least it should. And following straight on from that is to look at that route and look at the elevation. Now, that won't always be on the event guide, so you will need to scour the internet for someone that has put a map with the route on it and found the elevation profile of that route. And that's important because you can look at that race route and see what mile or what kilometre the elevation does go up a little bit or spikes by a lot, and you can prepare for that when you're out there racing. And a quick tip to follow on from that, if you are lucky enough to live close to the race that you're going to be participating in, then I would run a bit of that route during your training. And that is, again, so you can prepare for any changes in elevation or what the surroundings will look like when you're running there during the race. And you can do a bit of positive imagery, what it will look like on race day. And the final tip I have for you for this video is, I would say, the most important, and it is do not change anything on the race day itself. So you've been training with a certain gel, do not change that gel. Use that gel on race day. I don't care if a friend or family has said, oh, take this new gel, it's amazing, it will work wonders for you. No, because you have not tested it, and it will be a disaster if it causes problems with your stomach. Now when it comes to running shoes on race day, that can be a bit more difficult because you can get racing shoes such as Nike Vaporflies. You wouldn't necessarily train a lot in those Vaporflies just because the foam will break down way too quickly. But again, it is advised that you should at least train a few runs before your race in those race day shoes. Because if you find out on your training run in those race day shoes that they're just not agreeing with your feet, then you know not to use them. But ultimately, you can look at the race day as being just another long run. You wouldn't change anything on your long run, so why change it for your race day? So there we have it. Those were just a few tips. There's a whole plethora of tips for training for a race. But I hope you found these useful. If you have any more tips, and I'm sure you do, please put them down in the comments below. Guys, I'm the Average Joe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.